Good morning to all of you out there. I hope you have a pleasant day ahead of you. I'm Cito Beltran. Welcome to the program Agenda on Signal TV via channels 8 and 250. And you can also watch us if you're on the go via facebook.com/onenewsph or on YouTube, One News PH. Today is October 29, 2020. It's a Thursday, and today we have scheduled key interviewees. First would be from the Toll Regulatory Board, Engineer Abraham Sales, Executive Director of the TRB, to give us an update because it seems that the announced cashless system on all our expressway has been pushed back to December. Originally, it was supposed to start, I think, November 2 or November 4. It's been pushed back because of all the technical difficulties. Pag-usapan po natin yan. And then we will interview a psychiatrist and a dean of the Lyceum of the Philippines. First, we will interview Dr. Bernadette Arcena, psychiatrist, and then we will interview Attorney Maria Soledad Mawis, Dean of the Lyceum of the Philippines, University of College Law, College of Law. And baka magtanong kayo, bakit? Para saan yan, Kuya Cito? In case you've forgotten, I read a news article yesterday about a man who was sentenced to 6 months up to 8 years in prison for psychological, ano ba yun, parang cruelty or something ng babae. He basically cheated on his wife, and then they reconciled, and then he backslid and went back to his mistress, and kumbaga sabi nga, maloka-loka na yung misis, nabaon pa sa sobrang gastos, nagdemanda, and after going through the RTC, the Court of Appeals, finally to the Supreme Court, ayun, nanalo yung misis at na-sentensyahan yung mister. And I have my own questions on the case because you kind of wonder, this is the domestic issue. Call it a crime, domestic crime. Pero parang umabot pa ng Supreme Court. Parang sinasayang yung oras ng Supreme Court sa ganitong mga bagay. In any case, we'll tackle all of that. But before that, let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star. Okay, there you go. On the topmost part of the front page, the Philippine Red Cross resumes swab testing but wants its 500 million paid in 3 days. Yan po, nag-ultimatum daw si Red Cross, Philippine Red Cross CEO. Ang dami niyang title. Hindi ko na alam kung ano title ni Dick Gordon. Senador na, chairman pa ng Red Cross, etc. But Dick Gordon has essentially said, we want our money and we want it in 3 days. And then if you see that photo, yan po yata yung doon sa may Dangwa ba yan? Or ewan ko kung Dangwa yan kasi medyo iba yung itsura, iba yung dating. Pero yan po yung bilihan ng mga bulaklak sa Manila, malapit sa bandang UST. I think, I'm not very sure. But in any case, yeah, it's in Dangwa Flower Market in Manila. And matumal po ang bentahan kasi nga medyo maraming sementeryo sinara na dahil sumusobra na yung pasok ng tao in avoidance of COVID-19. In any case, then you have the main headline, 5 agencies in the crosshairs of the task force for against corruption. At yan po ay ang department has identified the Bureau of Customs, the BIR, as the priority targets. And then, syempre, of course, yung DPWH, Bureau of Immigration, Land Registration Authority. Yan po, no, yung mga pag-ano. And then, lower part of the, okay, then you see there, cashless toll collection moved to December 1. And on the lower half of the headline, I don't know if we can move that now. There you go, of the front page. There you go, the tricycles. Very novel idea dyan po sa SMCT, East Ortigas, and the Pasig government. Kanilang kinuha yung mga tricycle drivers at sila ay nag-set up ng My Toda, a ride-hailing and delivery service app applied by SM and by the city of Pasig. Kumbaga, hindi na nakatambay lang sa kanto, pwede mo nang tawagan yung tricycle, I believe. Of course, the ombudsman suspends 8 PhilHealth officials, and then Storm Rolly, ito po, pag-ingatan ninyo dun sa mga tinamaan ng bagyo. Those who were affected by Typhoon Kinta, so far, sabi-sabi, projections is that Typhoon Rolly, when it enters the country today, will take the same path that Typhoon Kinta took. Kasi nga, wala nang habagat, medyo iba na yung direksyon ng mga bagyo, bumababa na, tinatamaan na tayo dito sa Metro Manila, sa Quezon Province, Batangas, etc. And last but not the least, the headline also, the front page also indicates 2,053 new cases. Total number of cases in the Philippines, 375,180. Yesterday, 61 people died from COVID-19, and that brings our total deaths to 7,114. Last but not the least, babanggitin ito, mobile services provider Smart Communications Inc. has partnered with View, a leading pan-regional streaming service operated by View International Limited, to launch the new Giga K video data pack from Korean superstar Park Seo-joon as endorser. Hindi pwede, Gab, na hindi ko basahin yan. Kasi I'm sure nakita yan ng mga bata-batang viewer at saka ng mga home economy brigade. Ang dami talagang nabaliw na sa mga K-pop at sa Korean telenovela. But in any case, let's go to the meat of the stories on the front page. Here we go on the stories on the front page in the Philippine Star. The new task force that seeks to probe corruption in government has placed 5 agencies in its priority list. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara, the task force chief, says that 5 agencies are the Bureau of Customs, Bureau of Internal Revenue, Department of Public Works and Highways, Bureau of Immigration, and Land Registration Authority na pinanggigigila ni President Duterte. Guevara said that they will prioritize investigating agencies which are at the national level and are prone to corruption. In related news, the Office of the Ombudsman has suspended 8 officials of the PhilHealth over the controversial interim reimbursement mechanism. The suspension will be for 6 months and without pay. The 8 officials have been previously charged by the NBI because of the issue, and the suspension was made for the investigation of these charges. Okay. Still with PhilHealth, the Philippine Red Cross has resumed its swab testing after the state insurer paid 500 million pesos of partial payment. But the Red Cross says the PhilHealth must pay its remaining balance of over 500 million pesos within 3 days. Otherwise, the organization would have to stop its testing program again, says their chairman and Senator Richard Gordon. And last but not the least, motorists now have more time to secure their radio frequency identification or RFID as the Transportation Department moved the start of the mandatory cashless tolls from November 2 to December 1. But the DOTR emphasizes there will be no further extension after the 1st of December. We will speak with Toll Regulatory Board Executive Director, Engineer Abraham Sales, in a moment to talk about this matter. But in the meantime, yun po, yung mga laman ng balita. Medyo sorry, Gab, na-double pass ko yata yan. Sinama rin ko, tapos yung pala, babasahin ko din. In any case, those are the news and stories behind the headlines. Let's go now. I will have to check if... okay. We have a phone interview with Executive Director Abraham Sales of the TRB. Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning po, Sir Cito. Good morning po sa mga pagkasubaybay po ng programa po ninyo. Magandang umaga po.
Okay. Sir, we'd just like to find out what is, ano po ba ang sitwasyon, kalalagayan natin dito sa RFID registration? Kasi ako po, suportado ko yung ginagawa ng DOTR, 100% tayo dyan. Kanya lang, marami rin tayong na-pick up na complaints o angal na marami raw pumila, sobrang tagal ng pila, hindi sila inabot, may mga areas daw, nagpunta sila pero walang mga sticker, etc. etc. And then there seems to be confusion kasi ang thinking ng ibang tao na pag umabot na sa deadline, wala na, pakilinaw na lang at nadinig ko naman yung mga interview nyong napakalinaw, pakisabi na ulit dito sa agenda.
Opo, magandang umaga po ulit. 3 buwan na po, may gitna po sabihin natin, 2 buwan na po yung nag-i-announce po yung programa na yan. At kung nung nakaraang buwan po, kumuha din po ako ng RFID. Wala po akong kasabay at dito pong mga huling 2 linggo, doon po dumagsa po yung mga kumukuha. Siguro po, kaugalayan na po natin yon na kung kailan na po malapit po yung deadline, doon po nagdagsaan. So doon po medyo mahaba po yung pila ng mga kumukuha po ng RFID. At yan naman po, napansin po namin, sa amin pong pagpapulong nung nakaraang Martes po, nakadesisyonan po ng DOTR na kaya po in-extend yung November 2 na supposed to be the date of the implementation of the 100% cashless transaction ng toll collection. Ginawa pong December 1 na po. Ang ibig po sabihin ng 100% cashless po, na contactless po na toll collection, gagamitin na lang po natin yung RFID. Wala na pong cash lane. Ang ibig lang pong sabihin, yung may mga RFID lang po ang makakapasok po sa expressway at papayagan pong mag-travel. At yun pong hindi na po tatanggap ng cash payment. Pero yun po, i-address po rin po dun sa umpisa po nung pagpapatupad ng programa yan. At yun pong mga operator, nakahanda naman din pong magkabit ng mga RFID po doon po sa mga entries po ng expressway. Yun po yung nangyayari dyan. Pero tuloy-tuloy pa rin po yung pagpapakabit po ng RFID even beyond December 1. Kasi po, yung mga bumibili po ng mga bagong sasakyan, yung mga hindi naman po palaging nagbibiyahe sa expressway, yun naman po, malalagyan pa rin po ng RFID yan. Siguro po yung mga karamihan pong kumukuha ngayon, yun po siguro yung mga frequent travelers na nagbiyahe po siguro sila by November 2 po, yung original December 1 na po ngayon. Kaya po nagkukumahog po sa pila na makakuha po sila ng RFID para hindi na po sila mahabala by the time na pinatupad na po yung programa na yan. Ngayon po, medyo napansin po namin na yung mga pila medyo hindi na po mahaba. Kakaraan ko lang po dyan po sa bandang halls na nakita ko po dati nung isang araw, nung isang linggo, haba po ng pila. Ngayon po, medyo umigsi na po siya dahil po dun sa pagpapa-extend po nung pag-umpisa po nung 100% cashless transaction. Yun po.
Okay, so ipapa-extend natin hanggang December 1, pero even after December 1, pwede pa rin magpakabit, pero hindi pwedeng pumasok sa expressway. Paano yun? Kasi parang ang impression ng iba, engineer, Executive Director Sales, ay yung pagpapakabit ay only inside the expressways. Paano po ba yan?
Marami pong istasyon sa labas po na pwede po sila makabit. Nasa website po ng ng mga operators po kung saan po sila pwedeng magkakabit. Actually, meron din po sa mga mall. Meron din po sa mall.
Aha,
May
okay.
mga istasyon po, nasa labas po ng expressway na o kaya doon po mismo bago sa entrance, pwede po silang asikasuhin din at lagyan po ng RFID.
Oo,
Meron
kasi
din po sa loob ng
so,
expressway. Yung mga loading station naman po na tinatawag.
okay.
Pagka wala na po kayong load,
Hello? Okay, nawala yata si Executive Director. We'll try to reconnect, but just to refresh what the Director, Executive Director Sales mentioned, the placement of stickers, okay, will continue beyond December 1. Hindi po the end sa December 1. Ang sinasabi lang nila, pagdating ng December 1, you cannot pay cash at the toll booths of the expressways. You have to have an RFID. Now, if you don't have a sticker, then you will probably have to go somewhere before that. Kasi katulad sa SLEX, alam ko dito sa may before the toll gates on C5, meron silang booth dyan or container van converted into offices where you can have your sticker connected. Alam ko naman para sa NLEX, I know their people have been talagang masipag po. They have been putting a pop-up units lalo na dito sa may Home Depot on Julio Vargas. I know they've set it up at least 3 times, and there is a more clamor for people or for the NLEX to for NLEX to set up or continue the pop-up. Ayun, Executive Director Sales, balik po tayo.
opo, continuing naman po yun. Actually, meron din po silang tinatawag na caravan.
Aha.
Caravan teams na pupuntahan po yung mga lugar na mag-iipon-ipon po yung mga gustong mag-apply ng RFID. Pupuntahan po nila si service yung nagkakadikan po ng RFID. At
Okay.
magkakadikan pa rin po sila ng mga istasyon po ng mag-install po ng RFID. At tuloy-tuloy po yun. Hanggang paramihan po mabigyan na po. Kasi meron din po binabantayan po tayo yung tinatawag na penetration po ng RFID use. Nung mga nakaraang linggo po, nasa 60% na po siya. Hindi po katulad nung nakaraang taon, 30% lang po yung gumagamit po ng
Correct.
ng tinatawag na RFID.
Mm.
So, yun po, tuloy-tuloy naman po yung pagpapakabit. Yun nga lang po, tama po yung sinabi nyo, by December 1, wala na pong bayaran ng cash. Kung ano na lang po yung may RFID, yun na lang po yung makakapasok po ng expressway.
Mhm. Okay, paano engineer ang mangyayari doon sa mga ulyani, doon sa mga medyo hindi na nakikinig sa radyo, telebisyon o dyaryo, biglang pagpasok ay mali. Will they be turned back or papatabihin na lang? Kunyari, dumating ka doon sa toll booth at wala kang RFID and innocently talagang hindi mo alam na gano'n na pala. Paano? Papatabihin ka lang ba? May multa ba? O pakakabit ba RFID? What will the rule be?
May naman po may mga signages po yan na kung hindi po nila alam. For example, so may mga signages po doon sa mga entrance na makikita naman po siguro nila. And then ang naging directive po namin sa mga operator that they will have to set up measures po to address po yung mga ganong sitwasyon. Supposedly po, ang po namin sa kanila, mag-set up po sila ng installation sites dun sa mga entrances na pagka meron pong ganong motorista na wala po ng RFID, as much as possible po, iwasan naman po yung hindi po makagamit ng expressway by way of providing kung gusto po ng motorista subject of course to the procedure lalagyan po siya ng RFID
Mm.
parang karoon na po siya ng marital. Yun po yung mga solusyon po sa mga ganong sitwasyon po.
Okay. So kumbaga ano, papatabihin, pakakabitan, bayad ka, whatever. Pero at least hindi naman yung kasi may mga natatakot paano na yan, baka mamaya makaligtaan, baka ipapakulong yung tao or hihilahin yung kotse. Alam nyo na, ganyan talaga. Ito,
Hindi naman po, unless po yung pumunta po siya dun sa line na nakalagay na lang na RFID only, iba na pong ano yun, pumunta pa rin siya, nag-cause po siya ng traffic.
oo.
Mayroon na pong violation po yung gano'n na depende na po dun sa patrol po na ano po doon, yun po yung tinatawag na pwede pong disregarding ng traffic sign o kaya obstruction na po yung gano'n.
Okay, engineer, meron kagad na mga message. Grabe, ang bilis ng pasok ng mga message dito. From ano ba ito? Catherine Alejo Bukog. May RFID na po kami. Sana po walang expiry ang load kasi not all travels regularly. Thank you po. Meron bang expiry yan? Parang alam ko wala namang expiry yan, di ba?
Wala pong expiry yung load. At saka yung load na yun, sa toll fee lang po siya. Sa toll fee lang po ang i-charge po doon.
Okay. Ito naman pong sa news team, nagtatanong naman po yung grupo namin, what if my RFID kaso nawala yung card, register ba ulit? Kasi di ba maliban doon sa sticker, binibigyan ka ng card kung sakaling hindi mabasa nung reader, yung toll reader, yung sticker mo, iabot mo yung card mo, bali ebidensya na meron kang RFID.
Opo, yung ganun po sigurong kaso, kailangan po sigurong kumuha po ng card o magpapalit po ng kasi po yung card po, mayroon pong QR code, may mga code po yun na pagkapagpulya po yung doon sa plaza, yung RFID niya, for some reason, nakagas-gas or whatever.
Oo.
Yun po ang card, ang katunayan na meron po kayong account at yun po ang babasahin nila. Ganun po, kailangan po mayroon po dapat card talaga, papalitan o kumuha po ng iba.
Okay, ito sinasabi ko na biglang dumami nagte-text sa akin ngayon eh. Hi Cito, watching your program now regarding RFID. Ito naman kay Froilan Dityankin, siya yung sa Geely, no? Motors. Will they really abolish the cash lane totally? Kasi may mga lugar sa alam ko Hong Kong, Japan yata, even in New Jersey many years ago, no? I remember na merong toll na parang parang sa casino, yung chips na itatapon o kaya meron pa ring nag-iisang bukod tanging cash lane. Ito ba completely gone na talaga lahat ng cash lane?
Yun po ang programa, ang objective po, 100% cashless po. Mawawala na po yung mga cash lanes. Yun po yung programa na in-issue po ng Department of Transportation.
Okay, ano yan? Kumbaga nung bata tayo, engineer, sabi natin, puwera lines, puwera move. Talagang pagdating December 1, wala ng cash lane.
Yun po yung programa. At binigyan po ng pagkakataon po yung mga motorista. Yun nga po, sobra po 4 na linggo na kumuha na po ng RFID dahil ang mandato pong binigay po ng Department of Transportation, 100% cashless, contactless transaction. So, ibig sabihin, wala na pong cash lanes sa mga toll plaza.
Pasensya ka na, engineer. Baka sabihin nung nakikinig, Cito, hindi ka naman nakikinig kay engineer. Nakikinig po, alam ko po, inuulit-ulit ko lang para sa kapakanan ng mga ayaw maniwala at hindi matanggap. Paano na, engineer, itong mga ating automotive industry? Yung katulad nitong Geely, itong Chery, itong Volvo, Chevy, Toyota, etc. Meron bang arrangement with the TRB or the expressways na parang bigyan na lang yung manufacturers ng set of stickers and cards para sila na yung magkakabit at mag-i-issue sa bawat vehicle na binenta nila. Kasi parang, actually, yun yung parang pinupuna na humahaba at tumatagal kasi kung minsan iisa, dadalawa yung nagkakabit per booth. Pwede, dito sa mga new cars, posible bang mangyari yun na ibigay na lang isang batch or per as required yung number of stickers para sa planta pa lang or sa dealership pa lang, kinakabit na yung mga sticker na yun. I don't know, I'm just wondering.
Ginagawa po dyan, actually, ginagawa na po yan, pero ang nagkakabit po yung installer po talaga ng RFID. So, yung may mga binibenta pong bagong sasakyan po ngayon, kasama po sa tinatawag na freebie po, may RFID na po siya na pwede na po siyang gamitin paglabas po nung kasa. Yung arrangement na po na yun po between po yung dealer at saka yung operator po. Yun po yung pagkakabit ng RFID, sinubukan po nila yan, yung tinatawag na do it yourself. Nagka-problema po yun kasi yung ini-issue po nilang RFID, yung pinapadala po, na binili po online, kinakabit po sa, kunwari po, sa kotse supposedly, kinakabit dun sa malaki, class 2. Tapos yung iba po, mali po yung kabit, so nagkakaproblema po pagdating po dun sa toll plaza. Tapos yung iba po, ginawa na pong negosyo. Nagpadiligat, namili po ng mga RFID, hindi naman po pinakabit, binibenta po sa iba. So yun po yung kadahilanan na nakarating po sa amin. Kaya po pinigil po nila yung gano'n. Pero yung mga dealers po, they can make an arrangement with the operators para yun pong mga kotse na binibenta po nila, meron na pong RFID. Ano lang naman po yun ang titignan lang po, yung siguro pong conduction sticker or yung chassis number, para nakarehistro po yung RFID na yun, identified po kung saan po siya nakakabit. They can make that arrangement po, yung mga dealers with the operators.
Ito po bang program na ito, Executive Director Sales, does this cover all types of vehicles, magmula sa motorsiklong 400cc up hanggang sa mga delivery trucks? Kasi hindi ba may mga truck may mga cargo van, may mga truck ng baboy, gulay, lahat yan covered? Nope. Nawala na naman. Okay. I-check natin ulit kasi nagkakasarapan po ang tanungan dito dahil ayan medyo marami ang nagtatanong regarding this issue. Yan na yung sinasabi natin na okay, interoperability of auto sweep. Ayun, okay. Executive Director, nandiyan na po ba kayo? Okay.
Yung narinig ko pong tanong nyo, applicable po sa lahat po ng mga sasakyan na pumapasok po sa expressway. Magpunta po dun sa motorsiklo na may makina pong 400cc and above. And then merong class 1, yung mga kotse, class 2, mga buses, delivery vans, and then yung malalaki pong truck yung tinatawag na class 3. They all have to secure ang RFID para po makapasok po sila, makagamit po ng expressways.
Okay, pero
ang sasakyan na pinapayagan po sa expressway.
Okay, paano yun?
Yung programa.
Okay, last two questions na lang, Executive Director, no? Kasi napapansin namin yan, maraming mga cargo truck, meron ngang RFID, wala namang load o kulang yung load or whatever. Hindi, wala Alam ko walang load. Parang nag-aabot pa ng pera doon sa toll booth yung mga tinamaan ng ewan
Opo, pag nawala na po yung cash lane, wala na pong ganon. Kasi kung wala po silang sufficient load to pay, again, napupunta na ulit po tayo dun sa hindi po tataas yung barrier.
Oo.
Meron na pong kaukulang po yun, violation. Obstruction or either obstruction or disregarding traffic sign.
Okay.
Po ang magiging
So,
patakaran po dyan.
matitikitan sila, in other words. Last question, Sir. Interoperability po ng auto sweep and easy trip. posible po ba para hindi na dala-dalawa? Kasi oo nga naman, ako maubusan na ako ng espasyo doon sa windshield ko. So dami ng mga sticker para sa expressway, sticker sa mga village, etc.
Opo, actually po, yung programa na yan, nag-umpisa po noong 2017.
Oo.
Kasi nga po, yung dalawa po yung RFID po natin. Actually, 10 concession contracts po yan eh. Yun pong nagko-control, basically dalawang grupo. Meron po actually isang grupo, yung Ayala, pero magkasama po sila sa San Miguel doon po sa tinatawag na auto-sweep RFID system. Ito po grupo ng MPTC, hindi Pangilingan Group, yun po yung tinatawag na easy sweep system. So yun pong programa na napagkasunduan po noong 2017, tatlong phases po yun. Yung una po, i-allow po ng easy sweep na magamit po yung auto sweep RFID dun po sa mga jurisdiction po nila. Ang ibig lang pong sabihin nun, kung meron ka pong auto sweep RFID ngayon, pwede mo po siyang iparehistro doon sa easy sweep. Sa ngayon po, pwede na po yun. Mag-o-open ka po ng account mo doon, bibigyan ka ng card, at pagka na-activate na po yun, yung auto sweep RFID mo, pwede mo po siyang gamitin dun sa mga jurisdiction na expressway po ng NBP Group, sa NLEX. Yun naman po ang phase 2 na tinatawag, pagka ang RFID mo po, na-issue po ng, yung easy sweep mo, na-issue po ng MPTC Group, ina-arrange po namin na mabasa din po, pwede din pong gamitin dito sa auto sweep. At yun po ngayon ang kasalukuyan pong nag-uusap po yung dalawang grupo kasi medyo may pagkakaiba po kasi yung pagkakakabit po ng mga RFID. Kung mapapansin nyo po, kung auto sweep na sa tapat po ng driver, kung sa headlamp po pinabit, at yung easy sweep nandun po sa tapat ng passenger side. Kailangan pong mag-adjust po kasi yung mga plaza sa reader at hindi naman po mapatupad basta-basta dahil baka magkaroon lang po ng poor readability, ang katutak na complaint naman po ang mangyayari. Kaya yun po ang talaga pong tinitignan po ngayon. At nag-uusap po yung dalawa, yung auto sweep at saka easy sweep, para may patupad na po yung tinatawag na second phase. Ang third phase po, yun na po yung tinatawag na isang RFID na lang, isang account na lang. Yun po, medyo may accounting na po yun. May accounting issues na po yun. 10 concession contracts po yung sasakupin po nun. Sa ngayon, pag nagbukas po yung Skyway 3, nagiging 11 po, and so forth. Medyo na po yun. Pag-uusapan pa po yun kung paano po ipapatupad yung ganun pong phase. Yung isang RFID lang po siya pag kumuha ka, na pwede mo na siyang gamitin kahit saan na expressway. Yun po yung final phase po ng programa.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Engineer Abraham Sales, Executive Director, TRB. Marami po kayong naliwanagan ngayong umaga and relax lang po. Alam ko medyo puputi yung buhok ninyo for the next week pero I'm hoping maayos din lahat ito pagdating ng panahon. Thank you very much, Executive Director Sales.
Opo, maraming salamat din po sa pagpapabigay po ng pagkakataon po sa amin na may paliwanan po yung programa na yan. Good morning po sa mga taga-subaybay po ninyo at saka sa inyo po. Magandang umaga po. Salamat
Okay.
po.
Thank you very much. And that was Executive Director, Engineer Abraham Sales of the Toll Regulatory Board. We will go for a break. When we come back, puntahan naman natin yung isang topic na binanggit ko at mga ibang bagay na palagay ko dapat ko rin banggitin na nasa balita because medyo pag pinuntahan niyo po yung local news ng Philippine Star, aba, malaman-laman today. Marami-raming importanteng balita. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Welcome back to Agenda. I'm Cito Beltran and you are watching us via Signal TV, channels 8 and 250. At para naman po sa inyo na mahilig sa mga balita o hindi nakakadinig ng balita for whatever reason but you watch Agenda, may I just mention to you quickly before we go to our next interview, the DILG declares road clearing to resume November 16. So pagdating po ng November 16, magkakahilahan na naman, magkakabaklasan, magkakagibaan, medyo just reminding you, road clearing according to the DILG starts on November 16. In fact, just yesterday, I noticed a vehicle na dito lang sa Barrio Kapitolyo naklamp kasi malinaw naman, nilagyan naman ng barrier dun sa lugar. Ewan ko, nakain ng pobre na yun, pinaradahan. Siguro, inisip niya, COVID, hindi na siguro ito uso. Pag daan ko, may clamp yung kanyang gulong at merong maliit na sulat na na-clamp ka kasi no parking ito. In any case, and then Megawide, the company, offers to absorb NAIA employees in takeover bid. Kasi mukhang itong Megawide, nagbibid para sila yung mag-rehabilitate ng NAIA, naging issue. Sinabi ng mga congressman, 14,000 employees yan. Baka naman pag napasa inyo na yung NAIA na yan, biglang mawala ng trabaho yung mga empleyado. Pagkatapos, isa pang pinag-uusapan ng marami, the Department of Foreign Affairs vows severe penalty for envoy who abused maid. Hindi po ni-rape, nilait-lait, okay? Meron tayong isang ambassador, sa Brazil, Philippine ambassador to Brazil. Hindi ko na sasabihin yung pangalan ng pero na-videohan siya. Ako, security video yata, nilait-lait niya yung mga domestic staff niya, na mga Pilipino, pinarecall siya at mukhang, ewan ko, baka mukhang mawala yung pagka-ambassador niya kung ano pa, no? Anyway, si Vice President Leni and her aides tested negative for COVID. Muntinlupa bans karaoke sessions during weekdays. Bawal ang karaoke sa Muntinlupa. Pagkatapos, Visayas, Mindanao to ship more hogs, pork to Luzon kasi na severe shortage na po ang baboy dito sa Luzon at yung PNPA ay COVID-free na, etc., etc. Yan po. So, well, moving on to our next interview. Pagpasensyaan nyo na kasi kailangan ko kayong i-update, lalo na doon sa clearing. Let's go to an expert who can talk to us about yung ano ba yung tawag nitong yung psychological violence. Kasi yan yung naging batayan ng Supreme Court para sentensyahan yung palikerong asawa na sentensya ng 6 months to 8 years. Let's bring in Dr. Bernadette Arcena, psychiatrist, to talk about psychological violence. Kasi baka may mga lalaki dyan, hindi nyo naintindihan yung pati mga misis. Baka hindi nyo alam kung ano yung psychological violence. Doktora, good morning to you.
Hi, Cito. Magandang umaga sa'yo.
Yeah, actually, medyo na-surprise nga yung aking agenda team kasi sabi ko, bukas, today, pag-usapan natin yung ano na yan, yung pambababae na yan at saka yung psychological violence. Could you give our viewers a proper appreciation of what psychological violence is? Kasi may mga lalaki dyan, hindi nga nananakit, no? Hindi sila nagbubuhat ng kamay. They don't physically hit or hurt people, especially their spouse, but
Mhm.
they have been accused of mental torture. Paki-explain nga, doktora.
Ang partner psychological abuse, ito yung yung parang non-accidental verbal or symbolic acts of one partner that would result into what? Potential to result in harm to the other partner. So, ito yung category ng psychological abuse that during the time, the past year, merong berating, merong humiliation, merong interrogating at restricting the victim's ability to come and go freely. Kumbaga parang wala siyang free will and obstructing the victim's access to assistance. And not only
Mm.
that, threat to harm, physical harm, kasama din dito yung sexual assault, harming or threatening to harm, and merong restriction ng lahat ng mga ginagawa ng victim for economic resources, and then isolating the victim sa kanyang family, friends, and social support, no? And
Mm.
then talking the victim or trying to make the victim think that she is crazy. So ito yung part ng psychological abuse, no?
Mm.
Dito sa DSM-5 diagnosis, no? Ibig sabihin yung parang Biblia namin for mental disorders.
Okay, yan yung medyo, no, base dun sa relasyon ng mag-asawa. Dito sa nabasa nating kaso, and because I want people to be clear about it, because pag binasa mo yung istorya, parang simpleng kaso ba na yung lalaki ng babae, tapos nagsisikuno, bumalik sa misis, pagkatas ng ilang buwan hindi nakatiis, binalikan yung kanyang kirida o yung kanyang kabit at inanakan na. Pero walang kwento doon sa details kasi of these types of abuse na sinasabi mo. Meron pa rin bang category na yung bang pinagdaanan ni Mrs. na naloko siya, nagsinungaling sa kanya, tapos nalaman niya na may 3 na palang anak doon, etc. Tapos hiningan pa siya ng pera kasi sinabi yung mister mo mamamatay na, may sakit, etc. I mean, yung ba psychological violence din ba yon or abuse?
Actually, nakalagay dito na nabasa ko nga yung rulings ng court na is more of the mental anguish na
Mm.
nararanasan ng isang wife, no?
Mhm.
Na ang kanyang asawa ay nagkaroon ng iba. It's
Mm.
more of the psychological impact on her psyche.
Mm.
Parang hindi siya masyadong nagde-deal with na kung nagkaroon ka ng ibang partners, but it's more on the effect on the mind, no, of
Mm.
the aggrieved party.
Aha.
So, ito yung kanyang emphasis na kailangan nakikita ng court na may psychological trauma, may depressive episodes, at saka alam mo yun yung tipong lahat ng parte ng buhay mo ay naapektuhan because of what that husband did, no, to their marriage and to
Mhm.
the wife per se.
Okay, but what everything has a, sabi nga nila, lahat ng bagay nagsisimula sa maliit. Starts with the seed, it starts with something. What are the warning signs for both partners,
Party.
parties? Kasi meron din namang mga, I'm sorry, no, pero may mga misis din na ng sa psychological abuse, ng emotional blackmail, etc. I think if you're a human being, you're capable. What are the warning signs?
Actually, the warning signs dito, 'di ba? Bago kayo mag-asawa, you have this promise, 'di ba?
Hmm.
To love each other, to be together in times of sickness and death, 'di ba? And till death do us part, no?
Hmm.
So, yung may mga senyales, halimbawa, hindi na siya masyadong nagiging caring sa partner, setting aside, no, if we talk about the emotional and psychological neglect, nandun yung hindi, parang walang pakialam na dun sa isang partner, hindi na masyadong nagfo-focus doon sa kanyang responsibility as the wife or husband. And then meron din ng concept about palagi na sila nag-aaway, no? Kung titingnan nga natin Sito, no, parang, normal lang naman nangyayari yan, di ba, sa mag-asawa.
Mhm.
But if there is what we term as emotional abuse, na walang pakialam or pinapagalitan, nakikipag-away, verbally abusive,
Mhm.
palagi na lang nagmumura, na palaging pinapagalitan, pinapahiya, no? This can be in the forms also of psychological abuse, na parang kung ano nung sinasabi sa'yo, berating about things na parang like minumura ka. These are also the abuses that
Mhm.
can be seen, no?
But it's also something that we should be careful about kasi parang marami sa atin well at least yung sa mga naengkwentro ko or nakaka-counsel ko, parang they start out by saying, well, nag-express lang ako ng galit ko or sama ng loob ko. Hindi ko naman siya sinaktan physically or hindi ko naman siya winalang niya. Pero I had to say what I was feeling. I mean, yun ba? Acceptable ba yun sa tingin mo, Doktora?
Yung mahirap kasi magsabi kung what is acceptable and not acceptable, di ba? In a
Oo.
relationship. Here, the aggrieved party would feel the repetitive
Aha.
emotional assault. Hindi lang siya yung isang araw, okay kayo, or once a week. It's a repetitive, recurring na battering na nararamdaman ng isang partner.
Mm.
Minsan kasi this kind of abuses, you have to take it into consideration na at times people might tend to abuse it also, no? Meaning
Oo.
to say, we have to really stick to ano ba talaga to, and I know the dilemma of this. Kaya nga sabi ko, careful din talaga tayo, and like for example, if court cases will be done, importante din dito na may mga detalye for us to consider kung talagang trauma to, o nag-away lang ba to, o parang revenge lang to sa isa't isa. Kaya nga
Mm.
it's a work in progress. I, for
Okay.
one, when I deal with annulment cases, I see to it that there is psychological incapacity.
Mhm.
Psychological incapacity in court is actually one of the basis for the annulment of
Pero
the...
hindi ba yung psychological incapacity na yan parang excuse na lang na ginagamit ng mga tao? Kasi parang, I'm sorry, Doktora, I've said this before, nakapag-anak kayo ng 3, nakapagpa-college kayo, nakapagtayo kayo ng bahay, etc. Anong pinagsasasabi niyong psychological incapacity? Ayaw niyo lang sa isa't isa. I mean, that's my view.
you.
Am I being simplistic about it or am I being judgmental?
Actually, the psychological incapacity here is something wherein there is a problem with, di ba, you have the promise to love each
Mm.
other, care for each other, be there for each other, being physically present to each other, and
Yeah.
supportive sa mga ginagawa nyo. Well, it's kind of something very simple for that matter. But,
Yeah.
when there is a recurrent problems with the functioning of both the husband and wife, and there is it causes a lot of losses or emotional battering, depressive instances of both the parties, and parang hindi na na-uphold yung sanctity of the marriage, then
Okay.
that's where we term it as psychological incapacity.
Okay,
Ito na
pero Doktora, matanong ko lang, no? Itong psychological violence or even physical violence or battering or verbal abuse, no? Ito ba ay where does it come from? Is it something that happens because the party, let's say here, yung lalaki or yung babae man lang, yung lalaki feels so guilty that
Mhm.
they have to justify their guilt by becoming violent or why do people become verbally abusive, psychologically abusive? I mean, sabi nga ng mga ibang kaibigan ko, they just get out of the stupid relationship. Why do you have to hurt people?
Very interesting question, actually, Cito. Why is somebody emotionally abusive or verbally
Hmm.
abusive? Now, it takes two to tango, right? We always say that, no? There are cases, now I'll just state some of my cases in court.
Okay.
There are some cases wherein the husband is had this kind of inferiority with regards to the success of the wife. That could be
Hmm.
one. There are some problems with personality disorders, like having an antisocial personality disorder, wherein you have problems in maintaining relationships.
Mhm.
There are problems with responsibilities na nahihirapan kang mag-tackle doon sa mga trabaho mo, or being a family man. Okay, and then you engage yourself in liaisons with other women for the purpose of what? There, when you go into their childhood history, there are a lot of stories. Some may be abuse, some may
Mhm.
have a father who is also gallivanting.
Mhm.
There are problems also with childhood. So parang ano siya, no, di ba, Chito? Parang telenovela na kung
Na
ano
well,
sa kabataan.
na-model ng lolo sa ama na imo-model naman sa anak. Meaning ganun sila, abusado sila,
Yes,
nananakit sila, nagmumura, so namamana. Pero itong in relation, okay, anyway, going to your cases, what else?
yeah, those kind of problems, I've seen that. No, na may nagkaroon ng inferiority complex
Mhm.
yung husband so wife. But, in psychological incapacity kasi hindi lang as simple as that. There should be an array of situations, like there are problems with what? Some of them may have problems with the law. So may
Mhm.
mga iba siya na may mga conflicts na with the law. Some may be imprisoned because of drugs, because of other business interests na nagkaroon ng mga anomalies, no? So mga ganito kasi nakikita mo talaga na mayroong problems with the personality disorder. But looking back at the current situation right now in the court, ang sabi nga no, nung kahapon, na-release nila na is more of the emotional anguish. It's
Mhm.
more of the psychological effect on the psyche of the aggrieved party.
How serious is the impact of psychological violence on a person, regardless of gender?
See to the self-esteem is lost. At times, the person may have problems with being so down and depressed that they go into an depressive episode or a disorder. Some may have anxiety disorder, or some may be the effect of post-traumatic stress disorder nandun.
Mhm.
Sa patuloy-tuloy na nakikita niyang trauma. And not only that, no, some um, cases that I have may become suicidal because of the
Mhm.
losses, no? O because of the emotional battering, no? Parang yung ginigera yung utak mo, yung isip mo, yung puso mo na you're not good enough, that this person is better than you are, no? These are nakakaano, kumbaga in terms of Tagalog, parang nakakahina at nakakapagproblema sa pag-iisip.
Okay, but are victims of psychological violence, victims of marital infidelity, do they in turn become violent to others? Kasi like, do they become violent to their children psychologically? Do they become violent or aggressive towards their office mates or their employees? Kasi parang may mga nagsabi sa akin na they turn on others imbis na naghahanap ng simpatya, kung yung weakness nila dito becomes their aggression naman sa kabila.
It depends on um, your defense mechanisms. It depends on how, one, if there are protective factors that can help you bear with the
Mhm.
problems that you have. At times when you have family members who is very supportive of you, nababawasan din yun. And I would suggest talaga na at the earliest symptomatology na psychiatric support and therapy should be done right away para hindi na siya lumala.
Okay, ano ba yung symptoms para malaman mong, teka, magpapatigin na ako baka, kasi ang worry ko, baka mamaya dahil of all the side, di ba, some people break eh. Some people break, they don't go to a lawyer, they go look for a gun or a knife.
Yeah.
What are the warning symptoms that, you are in danger and endangered?
Suicide of a suicidal act, Cito. You're not yourself anymore. You always have crying episodes. At times, the victims will verbalize na, ay, gusto ko nang mamatay, no? Tapos minsan, nagbibiling sila. They would say na, okay, can you just take care of my child whenever something bad happens to me? Or at times, they would joke na, sige, pag pag libing ko, ganito dapat ang suot nyo, no? So, these are parang warning signs that something wrong is about to explode in their minds, no? And not only that, they are not doing well anymore when it comes to work, school, and in the community. Parang they tend to isolate themselves. At ang hirap kasi nito, Sito, pag magkaroon ng mga suicidal attempts, which is
Yeah.
very dangerous, no? Ang attempt can be a completed one. There are times, Sito, na ang iba naman, so they would hide it among other people. And
Yeah.
that's where nagugulat tayo, oh my God, may nangyari kay ganito. No? So, hopefully with this kind of, we have to protect, no? We have to protect our patients who are having this.
How do we deal with friends who are going through this trauma or this betrayal?
Be there for them. It is always important that your presence as a friend or a neutral one can help a lot with the psyche of the individual. Importante din kasi, Sito, na kung kaya niyang mag-work pa rin, okay lang naman para lang, alam mo yon, makakatanggal din ng problema niya. But however, there are people who could not work anymore because of the psychological trauma.
You know,
So,
sorry to interrupt, Doktora, no? But kasi maraming cases ng mga babaeng nababatter or na nawawalang hiya or whatever sa marriage, marami sa kanila walang trabaho or have given up their careers. Would you suggest that women in one way or another try to maintain their ability to have to make money or to earn a living? Kasi parang naging crucial point yata yun sa mga nabasa ko, no, na when women stop earning money or don't earn money, that is one bad step towards this kind of situations.
agree with your observation. That's why I would like women to be empowered, that they will have their own money. Meaning to say, they have to know their rights, no? Na kahit na sila ay married, they have to have their own will or sense of entitlement na meron akong ganito. And di ba may iba din naman na husbands, they don't want their wives to work anymore. So do something for yourself, meaning to say, if there are things that will be valuable to you, then do it. Kasi, when the kids are grown up already, so you should have your own life, no? And yung mga interests mo should also be fulfilled para naman ikaw maging masaya ka rin.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Doctora, and we hope our viewers can pick up from the pointers that you've shared. Have a good day, and God bless you, Doctora.
Thank you so much, Cito.
Okay. That's Doctora Bernadette Arcena, psychiatrist, and we'll go for a quick break, and after the short break, we will go to the Dean of the College of Law, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Dean of College of Law of the Lyceum of the Philippines University here on Agenda. Okay, moving on to today's agenda, which is all about this decision of the Supreme Court. Kahapon po kasi lumabas ang balita, nagdesisyon ng Supreme Court sa isang kaso involving a case where a wife pursued a case against her husband, and the Supreme, because the husband had cheated, marital infidelity, and the Supreme Court, yung kaso po nagdaan from Regional Trial Court, went to the Court of Appeals, went to the Supreme Court. Medyo matindi. Yung husband ay overseas Filipino worker. Ewan ko kung ano siya, kung marino siya or engineer siya or something. We are not going to discuss that. But the thing is, the Supreme Court decided that the husband, based on the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004, was guilty beyond reasonable doubt and was sentenced to no less than 6 months but not more than 8 years. Ito po, no, medyo madalas kong nadidinig yan, lalo na dun sa mga kalalakihang nag-a-abroad. Aalis, may pamilya, love ko kayo, miss ko kayo. Pagdating sa abroad, meron ng ibang love doon. Pagbalik sa Pilipinas, may iba ng bahay na pinupuntahan. Ito, tinuluyan siya ng misis niya. Medyo, it's a warning to all of you men out there. And pati na yung women, kasi may mga women din pong ginagawa yan. Yung mga nag-a-abroad, naku po, yan, natuluyan. Anyway, let's go to our final interview. Our next guest is a lawyer, College of Law, Dean of Lyceum of the Philippines University. She also established her own law firm and specializes on family law and civil and corporate litigation. Let's speak with Dean Soledad Mawis of the Lyceum. Dean, good morning.
Good morning po. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Okay, Dean, pasensya ka na. Ako talaga proponent ako for, for family matters, and I want people, Filipinos, to understand na yung batas sa Pilipinas gumagalaw, so hindi na acceptable yung babaero yan, galing sa lahi ng babaero yan, etc. Ngayon, mambabae ka, pwede kang makulong. I'm sure you've read the case, and I'm sure you've studied the decision of the court. Nagtataka ako dito din, first question, it went from the RTC to the Court of Appeals, umabot pa ng Supreme Court, nagtuusap kami ng EP ko, sabi ko, Gabi, ba't umabot ng Supreme Court yan? Hindi ba yung Supreme Court yung mga malalaking kaso lang? What's your response to that, Dean Mawis?
Proseso po yun. Tama ho yun. Pwede ho umakyat ho sa Supreme Court, lalong-lalo ho, conviction po ito eh. So the only way na ma-acquit siya, isang pagkakataon, iakyat na niya sa Supreme Court. Kasi kung hindi niya yan inakyat sa Supreme Court at naging final and executory yung decision ng Court of Appeals, talaga ho makukulong ho siya. So one last attempt to have himself acquitted, iakyat niya sa Supreme Court. At maganda naman po nga yung issue na ni-resolve ng Supreme Court po.
You said maganda na ni-resolve yung issue. Are you suggesting that because the Supreme Court made this decision, all similar cases will no longer have to go to the Supreme Court because a precedent and a judgment has been made by the Supreme Court?
Yes, sir. Kasi meron po tayong tinatawag na prinsipyo na stare decisis. Yung pong mga decisions po ng Supreme Court, ang Court of Appeals, ang RTC, kailangan pong sundan ho yan. Katulad po ng binanggit nyo, it's a precedent setting. So all courts will have to follow the ruling of the Supreme Court because the
Okay.
decisions of the Supreme Court form part of the legal system of the Philippines.
Okay, now psychological violence, no? Kasi karaniwan sasabihin ng mga abogado, mga husgado, pare sinampal mo tinutukan mo, binaril mo dapat makulong ka. Pero dito parang wala namang tama, walang pasa, ganon, hindi binugbog, pero sinabi ng Supreme Court, psychological violence ang ginawa mo. What does this tell us in terms of future cases, Dean Mawis?
Violence is not limited to what you see. Violence is sometimes inside. Kaya ho sa RA 9262, 4 na klase po ang violence. May tinatawag ko tayong physical violence, sexual violence, psychological violence, and economic violence. Yung 4 po na yan ho ang nakapaloob sa RA 9262. So ang violence hindi ho yung nananapak lang. Yung pong pang nakakakos ng emotional distress sa isang tao. Tulad ho, kunwari ho, ang asawa ng babae. Siyempre ho, may epekto po yun You know, what was punished in this case was not the marital infidelity, but rather the emotional anguish that was suffered by the woman because of the marital infidelity. The psychological violence that was caused. The psychological violence was the means, and the effect was the emotional or distress or mental anguish. Yung po yun.
Hindi yung pambababae ang
Opo, per se.
pinaparusahan. Ang pinaparusahan dito, yung ginawang pagpapahirap sa pag-iisip ng babae. Okay.
Iba ho, kasi ho, kumbaga ho, pag ang lalaki ng loko ho, pwede hong sampahan ang babae at yung kanyang concubine ng concubinage. Meron din ho namang isang paraan na para habulin yung lalaki, ito hong RA 9262 o yung psychological violence. Sa aking pananaw ho, mas mahirap hong i-prove yung concubinage At least dito ho sa psychological violence, basta matibay lang ho ang inyong ebidensya. Tulad, nakinig po ako kanina po sa interview ho kay doktora po, mapapakita ho ng isang psychiatrist or psychologist yung epekto ho sa pangkatauhan ho ng babae. At kung mapapatunayan na ito nga po ay nag-cause ng mental anguish, yan po, or humiliation, public ridicule, yan po pwede ding habulin ang lalaki sa pamamagitan ho ng RA 9262.
Okay, paano nyo ginagawa yun, Dean Mawis? Kasi I'm sure maraming babae, and I feel so bad to have to say this, but I know there are many women out there who are victims. Victims of philandering husbands. Meron din namang mga lalaking victim din ng mga misis nila, no? Lalo na yung mga nag-abroad. Paano mo mapapatunay na nagdusa ka psychologically, na you were, kasi pag sinasabing violence, parang pananakit pananakit, yung bang tinamaan ka, tinarget ka. Pero dito, parang you were a victim but not directly unintended victim. Kumbaga, consequential victim, di ba?
Ang ano po, kasi katulad po ng nabanggit ko, ang violence ho ngayon, ang definition malawak na. Hindi nga lang po physical, pati ho sexual, pati economic, pati rin ho psychological. Ito yung psychological, paano ho natin mapapatunayan na ang isang babae ay naging psychologically abused? The best will be, of course, I have to have an expert witness. Katulad po ng doktora, she will have to undergo a series of tests, battery of tests. Pwede rin ko hong tawagin siguro yung mga taong nakatira ho sa kanyang pamamahay para magtestigo. Ano ang babae bago siya nagkaroon ng ganitong experience at anong naging kanyang kaanyuan o kanya yung kabuuang pagkatao nung siya naman ay nagkaroon ho ng ganitong problema. So madali na, hindi naman ho sa madali, no? Meron ho mga pamamaraan para mapatunayan po yan. Sir, if I may, no, kasi
Yes,
like
go ahead.
you said, kadalasan ang pananaw na po ng tao is pag sinabing violence, suntukan lang ho. Meron ho isang kaso. Ito ho, husband and wife. Dinesisyonan din ho ito ng Supreme Court. Kunwari ho, ang asawang lalaki gusto ho makipagtalik ho sa asawang babae, pero ayaw ho ng babae. Siguro masakit ang ulo, the usual na ayaw ho. And then he forces himself on the wife. That would constitute marital rape. So ibig ko hong sabihin, lumalawak na po, sir, yung definition ng pang-aabuso. Katulad din ho yan, kunwari, kung puinersa ng lalaki ang isang babae na makipagtalik, yes, it is the duty maybe, or to some, it's considered an obligation and duty to have this right of consortium. Pero ang babae ho, may karapatan din naman magsabing hindi ngayon. Ngayon, kung hindi po yan rirespetuhin at pipilitin po yan ng lalaki, baka ho makasuhan ho siya ng marital rape or even RA 9262.
On the other hand, Dean, is that a possible basis also for husbands naman to say, I'm applying for psychological violence kasi itong misis ko ayaw makipag-sex sa akin. Every day na lang na maghingi ako o magsabi ako, ayaw. Puro lagi ayaw. I mean, sorry may mga lalaki rin na sinasabi, kuya, ano gagawin ko? Malay ko sa inyo.
Ang kaibahan lang itong RA 9262, ang offended party ay babae o mga bata lamang. Ang offender, hindi ho nagiging offender, ay offended party, yun ho nasaktan, ang lalaki. Kaya ho ang title niya, Anti-Violence Against Women and Children.
Ayun, okay.
Hindi po ito pwedeng gamitin na basihan ng lalaki at sabihin, I was psychologically violated by my wife. Ay, hindi po. Wala pong ganun. Pero ako na ho nagsasabi, siguro maganda na ho talakayin din po yan na sana magkaroon ng batas para rin sa lalaki kung yun ho ang gustong isulong ng mga kalalakihan.
Okay, now, Dean Mawis, matanong ko lang, no? Nabanggit mo kasi yung economic violence. Maraming lalaki, hindi nila intindihan to. There are many men who feel that the wife should stay home. Although nagbabago na rin, ano?
Yes,
Pero may mga kaibigan pa rin akong mga medyo mali-mali. And you know, the higher educated, the more they say, oh, women shouldn't work, you know, we can take care of them. Parang sabi ko, you understand self-respect. You understand, you know, independent. Yung, paki-explain ka lang sa mga viewers natin, ano yung halaga na yung babae is economically somehow independent at ano yung tinatawag mong economic violence? Kasi may mga ganun eh.
Opo, yung economic violence, isang example ang hindi ho pagbigay ng suporta. Husband and wife must support each other, husband and wife must support their children. Kung yung lalaki ho, umalis ho, kunwari, tapos hindi ho nagbigay ng suporta, ilang beses na hong hiningi, wala hong trabaho yung babae, paano ho yung mga bata, yan po pwede ho siyang kasuhan ho dyan na tinatawag na economic violence. O yung bang ayaw yung paraan na hindi pinapa-access yung mga conjugal funds, hindi pinapa-enjoy sa babae yung kanilang mga ari-arian. That is a form of economic violence.
Kumbaga nililimitahan sa budget. Yan ang budget mo, bahala ka sa buhay mo.
Na alam naman lang, hindi naman talaga kakasya, pero sobra-sobra ang pera naman na meron ang lalaki. No? Pero ang dapat po nating hindi dito, remember that support is dependent upon the needs of the recipient and the ability of the giver. Baka naman yung babae humihingi ng 1 milyon, ang sahod lang ng lalaki yung pang minimum wage, hindi naman ho yan violence. Talagang medyo masyado naman ho sobrang pangangailangan, konti ang source, walang economic violence.
Pero alam nyo, Dean Mawis, thank you for mentioning that, no? And I want to reiterate that on the program because I have met at least 2 men, hardworking men, honorable men, na nilayasan ng misis nila. Kasi sabi ng misis, pinalaki ako ng magulang kong maranya, maayos ang buhay, mayaman kami, pagkatapos hindi mo pala kayang ganun rin ang buhay, lumaya. So it's true. These are real stories that you mentioned. No?
Yes,
Na
but that is
nangyayari.
very sad, that's very sad because marriage is not just peso and centavo. Kaya
Mm.
nga ho, sinasabi kinasal for better or for worse. And worse may be you're poor. You become poor from rich, you become poor. Talaga hong ganun.
Mm.
Yun lang ho ang gusto ko lang ho stress na support is dependent upon the needs of the recipient and the ability of the giver. You cannot
Mm.
squeeze blood out of a turnip, so to speak, no?
Mm.
Doon naman ho sa isang sinabi po nyo, yung kahalagahan ho ng babae na maging economically independent. Na, katulad po ng nabanggit po ng nauna nyo pong na-interview, si Doktora, agree po ako doon. Women should be empowered. Women should not stop working just because the men, their husband say, o wag ka na magtrabaho. No, if you want to work, please do work. Kasi alam nyo, may mga ibang kaso na naaawa rin ako na yung babae, iniwanan na ng lalaki, pagkatapos pumupunta sa korte para himingin ang suporta. Parang practically, you're already begging. Parang napakasakit naman yun, makikita mo, ikaw na iniwanan, pagkatapos ikaw pa yung, you're not economically independent. And some women, they do not, they just, they take the punches and cannot leave the husband because precisely their source of livelihood is on the husband.
Mm.
So, talagang nakakaawa ho kung ang babae ho ay talagang dependent on the husband economically. So,
Wala pa. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, I like the other guests, I totally support that women should be empowered and should be financially independent.
Okay, wala pa bang batas? Don't we have any law that makes it illegal for one spouse to prevent the other from earning a living, making money, or having a business? Kasi dalawang bagay. I'm married to a lady from the Netherlands. So medyo iba yung interculture, cross-culture marriages eh. Ang unang-unang natanggap ko is when we got married, she was not going to change her name because that's their culture. And then the second is, she works. When she will do whatever work she can or what she wants to do. Pero ako yung provider, but I have friends na parang nawawaw ako eh. Nawawaw ako kasi sinasabing, no, I don't want my wife to work. Parang, ano? It's not about the money, senor. It's about the self-respect.
Yes, agree. Sir, meron po tong batas. In fact, that is one form of economic abuse. Under RA 9262, ang definition po ng economic abuse, aside from withdrawal of financial support, preventing the victim from engaging in any legitimate profession, occupation, business, or activity, except in cases where the other spouse or partner objects on valid, serious, and moral grounds. Kung serious and moral grounds, kunwari, the woman is engaged in prostitution, for example, the husband says, no, stop that. That's valid. That is not going to be economic abuse. But for example, kunwari lang, sir, if my husband tells me, wag ka na mag-abogado, wala naman siyang sinasabing valid, serious, and moral grounds to sustain his objection or to justify his objection, that would constitute economic abuse, especially if I really want to work. So, meron po tayong batas naman.
Hindi ka pa ba nakaengkwentro ng mga relihiyon? Kasi I've heard one or two cases that cited that decision based on religious beliefs.
Sir, yung religious beliefs ho na may isa hong court officer na dapat ho may finailan ho siya ng kaso dahil nga ho allegedly meron nga ho siyang illicit affair, no? She is living with a man other than the husband. Yun naman ho, nagkaroon naman ho ng, tama ho yung sinabi ho, based on religious considerations, there was a weighing or balancing of interest na ang tingin ho ng Supreme Court, hindi ho siya technically a ground to have her dismissed from the court. But that is not, sir, the issue there was not based on RA 9262, but rather on her right to stay as a government official. Kasi ang government official must be of good moral character. Sabi ng
Yeah.
Supreme Court, sabi ng Supreme Court sa kasong yun, hindi naman daw ho. I mean,
Pero yung husband na magsasabing hindi kasi ito yung pinaniniwalaan ng relihiyon namin na ako ang magtatrabaho at yung misis ko ang magpapalakad ng bahay.
again, sir, if the objection is based on moral grounds, and that can mean religious grounds, no, maybe that would not precisely the husband will not be convicted for RA 9262 for economic violence. Kasi meron siyang, yun yung exception serious
Okay.
moral grounds. Opo.
Ayun. Okay, so Dean Mawis, last question ko na lang siguro, baka mababa yung sagot mo dito. Anong kalalabasan? What will be the ultimate outcome of the Supreme Court decision on this case? Kasi parang feeling ko, hindi naman ako abogado, pero feeling ko lang, patay na. Iba na ang labanan ngayon. Dadami ang pupunta sa korte just on psychological violence. And is it a very expensive undertaking based on your experience?
Okay, expensive. It might be expensive because you need to engage the services of an expert witness in the form of a psychologist or psychiatrist. Is it going to be, so of course, the lawyers, but if you are the plaintiff, meaning to say, if you're the offended party, hindi ka naman technically kailangan kumuha ng sariling abogado dahil may public prosecutor po.
Correct.
Na nagre-represent ng Republic of the Philippines. No? And actually, the offended party is a complaining witness. Isa siya sa mga witnesses lamang ng Republic of the Philippines. So sa ganang lawyer's fee, hindi naman ho yan masyadong that expensive compared to, let's say, petition for declaration of nullity, no? Where they usually get the lawyers na private, no?
Yeah.
So, palagay ko, hindi ho ganong kamahal. But
Okay.
you need to get good testimony from expert witnesses. Now, ano ho, in the long run, ano ho bang epekto nito? Ngayon pa lang, sir, nakikita na natin ang epekto nito. Pinag-uusapan ho. Ilan ho ang nabasa ko mga posts sa Facebook, sa internet, at ang pinag-uusapan, ito nga hong psychological violence. So, in the long term, I think, is men will think twice. Siguro hindi na sila magpo-post sa Facebook. Kasi pag nag-post ka ng ebidensya yan, tapos mababasa ng asawa mo, di ba? Psychological violence na yan. Kaya siguro mababawasan ang mga photographs of illicit affairs na pinopost sa Facebook.
Actually, sa akin, hindi psychological violence yun. Din, ang tawag doon, tanga. Anyway, sorry, I just couldn't help it.
But that is really very true. Again, I agree with you because one case, ganyan na nangyari. Kaka-post yan sa lagi ko nga sinasabi, marami nang nawasak na pamilya dahil sa Facebook.
Ayan. In any case, so in the long of time, sa haba ng panahon, sabi nga nila, mag-iingat na ang marami. Not just men, but women, na hindi kayo pwedeng basta-basta mga ngapit bahay, pupunta kay mare, kay pare, at pwede na kayong makasuhan, hindi concubinage, hindi adultery, psychological violence lang, talo-talo na.
Yeah, talo-talo na. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dean Mawis.
Bye-bye.
Enjoyable interview and very informative. Have a good day, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Okay, that's Dean Soledad Mawis, College of Law Dean of the Lyceum of the Philippines University. Yan po, no? Paalala lang sa inyo, we focused on this, we made this our agenda for today because it is, as Dean Mawis pointed out, currently the talk of the town or talk on Facebook. Why? Because it changes the landscape. It is no longer just about sexual violence. It is no longer just about physical violence. Now there is psychological violence, and it won't be long before this economic violence will become an issue. Bago po umabot sa ganong punto, isaayos na natin. Let's put our house in order. Let's put ourselves in order. You know, I've always said about prayer, about God, etc. You know, if you put your house in order and you put the word of God in your house, and He will establish it. I'm not being religious here. It's proof. my life and my wife, my daughter, that is the center of our lives, God and His Word. Eh kung ang word lang na lumalabas sa'yo, mura, pananakit, at ang mangyayari niyan, lalabas yan, tatawid yan sa kawalangyaan. Don't allow that to happen to your lives because, ayan, pag merong naabuso, na psychological violence, akala mo nakalaya ka na dun sa kinamumuhian mong misis mo, ayun, hinabol ka ng batas. The long arm of the law. Okay? Thank you very much for joining us today. We hope to have shared vital information to all of you. And please be faithful to God, to your wife, and to yourself. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Stay on the street.
Right.
Okay.